The night Los Angeles stopped breathing. It rained. Not the soft kind that cleanses, but the heavy kind. The kind that smells of exhaust, salt, and blood. Lucia Torres pressed her back against the cracked tile wall of a motel bathroom, the flickering fluorescent bulb above her giving the illusion of movement in the mirror. Her hands shook as she reloaded the clip of the gun she didn't know how to use. Outside, the rain drowned the hum of the city. The streetlights blinked. Cars rushed by on Sunset Boulevard, unaware that 2 blocks away, the witness in the biggest federal case against the Ortega cartel was waiting to die. Lucia's phone buzzed. A single message lit the screen, greater than "they found your handler." Her breath caught. A second later, the power went out. She froze. Darkness swallowed the room. A sound, soft, deliberate, came from the hallway. Footsteps. Lucia's heart raced, pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She gripped the gun tighter, whispering to herself, *, don't scream. Don't move. *, the footsteps stopped outside her door. Then, the lock clicked. She raised the gun. Too late. The door swung open, and a tall figure stepped into the darkness. Lightning flashed behind him, throwing his face into sharp relief. Broad shoulders under a black coat, eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. He spoke softly, his voice deep, accented, unhurried. "Put the gun down, Lucieletas. How do you know my name?" she demanded. "I know everything about you." She aimed at him, her arms trembling. "Get out or I swear I'll—" He moved faster than she could blink. The gun was gone from her hand, the cold weight of it now pressed against her own chest. His other hand caught her wrist, firm but not cruel. "Don't point a weapon unless you're ready to kill," he murmured. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Who are you?" He looked down at her and smiled, but it wasn't kindness. "The man they sent to end you." Her breath stopped. "But," he added, voice dropping lower, "I changed my mind." She blinked. "What? You're not dying tonight." She stared at him. "Why would you help me?" He stepped back, lowering the gun. "Because your death doesn't serve me anymore." The room filled with silence, broken only by the sound of rain and her uneven breathing. Lucia studied him in the dim light spilling from the window, the wet hair clinging to his temples, the faint scar running along his jaw. He looked too controlled to be anyone's savior, too calm to be anything but dangerous. "What's your name?" she whispered. He hesitated before answering. "Masha's Ortega." Her blood turned cold. "You're with them." "I was," he said simply. "Not anymore. That's impossible." He smiled again, small and sharp. "So is you being alive right now?" Lucia backed away until she hit the wall. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said. "Except your silence. I already told the feds everything." He nodded slowly. "I know, you testified about my brother. About the shipments. About the murders. Then why aren't I dead?" He stepped closer. "Because my brother was a monster, and you were the only one brave enough to say it." Her breath caught. "You're lying." He shrugged. "Maybe, but right now I'm the only one standing between you and the people who still serve him." Thunder cracked above them. Somewhere in the city, sirens wailed, distant, powerless. Masha's moved toward the window, peering through the rain-slicked glass. "We need to leave. They'll be here within the hour." "I'm not going anywhere with you." He turned, and for the first time, she saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not anger, not control, but something quieter. "Regret." "Lucia," he said softly. "If you stay, you die. If you come with me, you might hate me, but you'll live." She shook her head. "I don't trust you." "You don't have to." He opened the door and waited. The rain hissed outside, the streetlights reflecting in his dark eyes. And somehow, against every instinct, she followed. They ran through the downpour, the city around them a blur of neon and thunder. He led her to a black car parked beneath a bridge, its engine already running. As she climbed in, she noticed the blood, dried along his sleeve, a small cut above his eyebrow. "You're hurt," she said. "It's not mine." "Then whose?" He started the car. "Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to." She sat in silence as they sped through the rain-slicked streets. past boarded-up shops and sleeping neighborhoods. After several minutes, she said quietly, "You really killed for them?" Masha's didn't glance her way. "I killed for survival. And now?" He hesitated. "Now I kill for peace." Lucia turned to the window, watching the reflections of streetlights slide across the glass like ghosts. "You think saving me will bring you that?" He smiled faintly. "No, but it might make the nightmares stop." They crossed into the desert before dawn. The city disappeared behind them, replaced by endless sand and the quiet hum of the engine. Lucia finally broke the silence. "Why me?" Masha's glanced at her. "Because you remind me of someone I couldn't save. Your wife?" she asked softly. He looked ahead, jaw tightening. "My sister." She swallowed hard. "What happened to her?" "She believed in truth," he said. "That was her mistake." Lucia turned away, staring out at the horizon where night met the first line of dawn. "Then I guess it's mine too." He didn't answer, but she felt his eyes on her. Measuring, haunted, maybe even afraid. As the sun rose over the desert, the world seemed almost peaceful. But Lucia knew better. Peace didn't follow men like Masha's. Ortega. It only followed the dead. And she wasn't dead. Not yet. The desert woke slowly, bathed in pale gold light that burned away the memory of rain. The city was behind them now, just a smear of gray on the horizon. Ahead lay endless miles of dust and silence. Lucia Torres sat in the passenger seat of Macias Ortega's car, her hair tangled, her heart still in a rhythm that hadn't found peace since the night before. The world outside was barren, yet the tension inside the car was alive, breathing, shifting, filling the space between every word they didn't say. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. Masha's didn't look at her. "Safe house. South of Tucson. You have one in the States?" "I have them everywhere." Lucia frowned. "That's comforting." He smiled faintly. "It's not meant to be." The sun climbed higher. Heat shimmered off the asphalt and the air grew thick. Lucia leaned her head against the window, exhaustion settling into her bones. "You know they'll never stop looking for me." "I know." "And if they find me?" "Then they'll have to go through me." She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in daylight. His face was all hard angles and restraint. A faint scar curved across his cheek, and his eyes, deep and steady, gave nothing away. "You don't even know me," she said. He kept his eyes on the road. "I know enough. Enough to die for me." He glanced at her. "Enough to kill for you." The words hit her harder than she expected. By late afternoon, the safe house appeared, a lone structure hidden behind a ridge of red rock. From the outside, it looked abandoned. Cracked walls, faded paint, sand piled against the door. Inside, it was something else entirely. Weapons lined the walls. Maps spread across tables. Files stacked neatly in labeled piles. Lucia paused in the doorway. "This isn't a safe house. It's a war room." Masha's walked past her, tossing his keys onto the table. "Safety is an illusion. Preparation isn't. You really think you can fight them all?" He looked up at her. "I already am." She folded her arms. "What are you planning?" He hesitated before answering. "To finish what my brother started and destroy what he built." Her stomach tightened. "Your own family?" "My brother died thinking fear was power. I'm going to teach his followers what real fear feels like." She shook her head. "That's not justice, Macias. That's vengeance." He met her eyes, unflinching. "You of all people should know they're the same thing." Hours passed. She showered, changed into clean clothes he'd left outside the door. His clothes, oversized but soft. The smell of smoke and cedar clung to them. When she came out, the sun was setting. Macias was sitting at the table, gun in hand, cleaning it with quiet precision. She watched him for a moment before speaking. "Do you ever stop?" He didn't look up. "Do you?" She sat across from him. "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see them." "The men who came for you?" She nodded. "The one in the alley smiled before he shot my handler. Like it was personal." Masha's movement slowed. "It was, what do you mean?" He set the gun down. "His name was Raul Corvera. He worked for my brother before I took control. When you testified, you cost him his empire. Raul wanted to erase the last piece of evidence. You. Lucia's voice dropped. You're saying your men were the ones who tried to kill me? They were my brothers, Macha said. Now they're no one's, and you think that makes you different? He paused, then said quietly, I'm still trying to find out. Later, when night settled over the desert, they sat outside by the fire pit behind the safe house. The stars stretched endlessly above them, cold and infinite. Lucia pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. It's strange, she said. I used to dream about stars when I was little. Now they just look like holes in the dark. Masha stared into the flames. Maybe that's what light really is, just wounds that never heal. She looked at him. You talk like someone who doesn't believe in redemption. He smiled faintly. Redemption is just another word for delay. What about forgiveness? Forgiveness is for the ones who die before they can earn it. Lucia turned away, frustrated by the calm in his voice. You talk like you've already buried yourself. He met her gaze. Maybe I have. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain and smoke. Lucia's voice softened. What did she look like? He hesitated. Who? Your sister. He exhaled. Like you. She blinked. That's impossible. Same eyes, he said. Same way of asking questions that make men uncomfortable. She smiled despite herself. So that's why you saved me. His expression didn't change. No, I saved you because I couldn't save her. But don't mistake that for kindness. Lucia nodded slowly. I don't. They sat in silence, the fire crackling between them. The distance felt both unbearable and necessary. Finally, she said, What happens when this is over? Machas looked up at the sky, the reflection of the fire flickering in his eyes. There's no rover, just quieter days between storms. Lucia turned her gaze toward the flames, her pulse steady but heavy. Then promise me something. He raised an eyebrow. What? That when they come again, and they will, you don't die for me. You fight for yourself. He studied her, expression unreadable. You think I have something left worth fighting for? She didn't answer. She just looked at him, the firelight catching the small tremor in her breath. He smiled faintly. That's what I thought. The fire cracked, the wind sighed. And above them the stars kept their distance. Neither of them slept. Both of them knew the night wasn't done yet, because far out in the dark, beyond the desert and the silence, engines were already starting, coming for the witness who should have died. And the cartel lord who'd chosen to keep her alive. By dawn, the desert was trembling. Lucia woke to the sound of engines in the distance, a low, constant growl that didn't belong to the wind. She sat up instantly, her body already remembering the rhythm of fear. The light outside the window was pale and gold, too gentle for what was coming. Machias was gone. Her heart kicked hard. She rushed to the door, scanning the room. His jacket was missing. The gun on the table too. When she stepped outside, the air was cold enough to sting. The safe house sat beneath the rising sun like a scar. Below, near the dirt road, Matthias stood beside his car, talking quietly into a radio. His voice was calm, clipped, the voice of a man built for chaos. 2 trucks, she heard him say. North Ridge. 2 minutes out. Who? She asked, stepping closer. He didn't turn. Corvera's men. Then we need to leave. He shook his head. We can't. They'll have the road covered. Lucia's pulse spiked. Then what's the plan? He looked at her finally, eyes dark and steady. To make sure they think they won. They moved fast. Machis stripped the car of anything traceable, poured gasoline across the seats, and handed Lucia a backpack. Water, food, a pistol, he said. The path behind the house leads to the ridge. There's an old radio tower 3 miles east. You can see the road from there. Stay out of sight. I'm not leaving you. His tone hardened. Lucia ladders. No! She stepped closer, trembling with a fury she hadn't felt since the night of the raid. You dragged me out of a motel. Tell me I can trust you. And now you want me to run? I want you to live. Then come with me. I can't. Why not? He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw the truth he'd kept buried since the night they met. Because they're not coming for you, Lucia. Her breath caught. What? They're coming for me. Before she could answer, the sound of engines grew louder, closer, faster. Dust spiraled into the air from beyond the ridge. Matthias grabbed her by the wrist, pulling her toward the back of the house. Go! I'm not leaving. He pressed his gun into her hand, his voice suddenly soft. You said you didn't trust me. So don't trust yourself. Masha's, he smiled faintly. This is where I stop running. Then he turned and walked toward the road. From the ridge above, Lucia watched it unfold through the shimmer of morning heat. Two black trucks tore down the dirt road, kicking up clouds of dust. Men leaned out the windows, rifles glinting in the sun. Macha stood alone in front of the burning car, the fire swallowing the evidence of their escape. She could barely breathe. Every instinct screamed to run, but her feet wouldn't move. The truck stopped. The men poured out Dot, and then she heard it. That voice. The same voice from the alley. The one that smiled before pulling the trigger. Raul Corvera. You're hard to kill, Ortega, he shouted. Masha stood calm. You've been trying for years. You're just bad at it. Corvera laughed. You should have stayed buried. The cartel doesn't forgive traitors. I didn't ask it to, Masha said. I just came to return what belongs to you. He raised his hand and dropped a lighter. The explosion tore through the desert. Fire bloomed against the dawn, swallowing the trucks, the men, everything within reach. The shockwave hit Lucia a second later, knocking her back. The sound drowning everything, she screamed his name. But it was lost in the roar. When the smoke cleared, the world was nothing but silence and ruin. Lucia stumbled down the ridge, coughing, the air thick with dust and heat. The trucks were wreckage, blackened frames twisted by the blast. And there, in the middle of it all, Matthias stood Dot alive, barely. Blood ran down his arm. His shirt was torn, his skin burned in places, but his eyes, they were still steady. She ran to him, shaking. You're insane. He gave a weak smile. You're welcome. She shoved him hard in the chest, tears spilling. You could have died. I told you not to come back. I don't take orders from men who don't value their lives. He caught her wrist gently, his grip trembling. Then maybe you should teach me how. She stared at him, heart breaking open. You think you can fix what's left of you? He exhaled. No, but I can try to make sure you don't end up like me. Her voice cracked. It's too late for that. They spent the next 3 days hiding among the rocks near the tower. Lucia cleaned his wounds, rationed the water, listened to him breathe through the pain. On the third night, as the desert cooled and the stars came alive, he spoke quietly. When my sister died, he said, I swore I'd kill everyone responsible. I thought vengeance would make me whole. Instead, it made me hollow. Lucia looked up. And now? He turned his head, meeting her gaze. Now I'm starting to think survival is the only revenge that matters. She smiled faintly. Sounds familiar. He chuckled, wincing at the pain. You're rubbing off on me. Then maybe there's hope for you yet. He watched her for a long time, his expression softening. You ever think about what you'll do when this is over? Over? She said, almost laughing. You told me there's no over. Just quieter days between storms. He smiled. Smart woman. She leaned her head against his shoulder. You said I reminded you of your sister. I did. Maybe I'm here to remind you you're still human. He was quiet for a long time before whispering. Maybe you're here to make me wish I wasn't. Lucia closed her eyes, pretending not to hear the sadness in his voice. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of smoke from the wreckage below. The ghosts of the men who'd come to kill them, for the first time since she'd met him. She realized that Matthias Ortega wasn't a man trying to outrun his past. He was a man walking toward it, one slow, inevitable step at a time, and she was walking beside him. The wind changed on the fifth morning, colder, sharper, carrying a silence that didn't belong to the desert. The kind that whispered danger. Lucia was the first to feel it. She woke before dawn, the chill biting through the thin blanket. Macias was already sitting by the dying fire, his back to her, staring into the horizon where the sand turned to silver under the early light. He hadn't slept. She could tell by the way he moved, too still, too careful. You heard it too, she said softly. He nodded once. Engines. 2, maybe 3. coming from the east. Her chest tightened. More of them. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Lucia glanced at his arm, still wrapped in a blood-stained bandage. You're in no shape to fight. He looked at her then, that same calm, unreadable expression that terrified her more than the sound of guns ever could. Doesn't mean I won't. Masha's, he stood, checked the clip in his pistol, and holstered it. You know the tower. If we split up, they'll follow me. No, Lucia, I'm not leaving you again. His eyes softened just for a second. If you stay, you'll die. Then die with me. For the first time since she'd met him, Matthias laughed, low, quiet, like the sound surprised him. You don't belong in this world. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. I didn't choose it. Neither did I, he said. But once you survive it, it never lets you go. She met his gaze, fierce and wet-eyed. Then teach me how to live in it. He hesitated, and that hesitation was all it took. Gunfire cracked across the ridge. Mashia shoved her down behind the rocks, bullets slicing the air above them. The echo of engines roared closer. Dust exploded around them as the trucks came into view. Matte black, armored, marked with the same insignia she'd seen on the cartel files. They found us, she breathed. He pulled her close. Stay down. A bullet hit the rock beside her head, stone splintering against her cheek. Masha's! She cried, but he was already moving, rolling from cover, firing in controlled bursts. His movements were precise, ruthless, beautiful in their violence. He dropped 2 men before the others scattered behind their trucks. Lucia's heart was pounding, so loud she could barely hear the shots. There's too many! I've seen worse. Then what? Then we make it worse for them. He looked at her, eyes steady, burning with something that wasn't fear. You said you wanted to live in my world. This is the price. She gritted her teeth, grabbed the pistol from her bag. Then I'll pay it. He almost smiled. Don't miss. The fight didn't last long, but it felt like hours. Lucia fired until her hands went numb, until her ears rang and her throat was raw from breathing smoke and dust. When the last shot echoed out, the desert fell into silence again. Eerie, absolute. 3 bodies lay near the wrecked trucks. 2 others had fled. Lucia lowered her gun, trembling. Machis stood a few feet away, his shirt torn, blood spreading from his side. She rushed to him, catching him before he fell. Hey, stay with me. He smiled faintly, blood on his lips. You didn't miss. Don't joke, she whispered, pressing her hands against the wound. We need to move. You're losing too much blood. Leave me. She shook her head, tears spilling. You don't get to tell me that anymore. Lucia, no, she cried. You dragged me out of a motel, out of my life, out of everything I knew. You told me to trust you. So trust me now. He looked at her, his breath uneven, eyes dark with pain. You shouldn't have followed me. And you shouldn't have come back for me, she said, voice breaking. But you did. Something flickered in his eyes then. Something softer, almost human. You're going to get yourself killed. Then at least I'll die for something real. She pulled him to his feet, half dragging him back toward the ridge. Every step was agony for both of them. The sun was higher now, the air thick with heat and smoke. By the time they reached the edge of the safe house ruins, he was fading fast. His knees buckled. Masha's no. Stay awake, please. He sank to the ground, gripping her wrist. There's something I need to tell you. Save it. You're not dying here. He shook his head, his breath shallow. Lucia, my brother didn't kill my sister. She froze. What are you talking about? She was the one who gave him the names. The witness list. The targets. Lucia stared, the words not making sense. What? He found out. Had her executed. And when I found her body, I thought it was him who betrayed us. Her stomach twisted. So all this time, I've been burning ghosts that didn't belong to me. The truth hit her like a second bullet. The empire he'd destroyed. The men he'd killed. The vengeance he'd lived for. All of it built on a lie. Masha's! He looked up at her, eyes glassy but still alive. Now you know the secret I've been dying to bury. She pressed her forehead against his. Then don't die with it. Not yet. He smiled weakly. I think I already did. No, she whispered, voice cracking. You're going to live. You owe me that. For what? For every night I didn't give up. She felt his hand slip from hers. Lucia, don't you dare, she said through tears. Don't you dare close your eyes. He did anyway. She held him until the sun dipped low again. The world turning the color of old blood dot by the time help arrived. The FBI, the paramedics, the endless sirens, the fire was out. Lucia sat beside the stretcher as they loaded him in, her hands still stained with his blood. A federal agent crouched beside her. You did good, Torres. He's alive, barely. She stared at the ambulance, her voice quiet. You don't know him. He doesn't die easily. The agent frowned. We'll keep him under protection. He's our ticket to dismantling what's left of the Ortega line. Lucia's eyes flicked toward the horizon where the first stars were appearing. He's not a ticket, she said softly. He's a man who's been burning for too long. And as the ambulance doors closed, she whispered the words she knew he'd hear even unconscious, the words that had become their curse, their promise, their prayer. You kept me alive, Machias. Now it's my turn. The hospital in Phoenix sat on the edge of the desert, where the city lights ended and the night began. From Lucia's window, the horizon looked endless, a sea of darkness waiting for the first breath of dawn. It had been 10 days since the desert burned. 10 days since Machias Ortega's pulse had almost slipped through her hands. 10 days since she'd realized that surviving didn't mean escaping, it meant learning to live. With the echo of gunfire still trapped inside your chest, she came to the hospital every morning before sunrise and stayed until the doctors forced her out at night. He hadn't woken yet. Tubes, machines, the quiet rhythm of a heart that refused to quit. That was all that remained of the man who'd once ruled a cartel and rewritten her fate. The FBI had been in and out. Questions, files, bargains. They called him the asset. They called her the witness. Neither title felt like the truth. She sat beside his bed, the sterile air heavy with the scent of disinfectant and coffee. His face was pale, almost peaceful, the scars softened by the hospital light. Do you know what they're saying about you? She whispered. They think you'll trade names for freedom. But you've never cared about either. Her hand brushed his, cold but steady. So wake up. Just once, do something selfish. Wake up for me. The machines hummed, indifferent. She closed her eyes. That night, she dreamed of fire again, but this time it wasn't devouring. It was cleansing. The flames were soft, golden, moving like water. Masha stood in the middle of it, unburned, looking at her the way he had before the first bullet was fired. Lucia, he said. His voice was calm, the kind of calm that comes when there's nothing left to lose. You don't have to carry me. She took a step toward him. Then wake up and carry yourself. He smiled, faint, tired. That's not how this ends. And when she reached for him, the flames rose between them, swallowing him whole. She woke with a start. The sky outside was turning gray, that fragile hour before morning when everything feels suspended. Life, death, hope. And then she heard it, a breath. Not the steady rhythm of a machine. A real breath. She turned. Machias' eyes were open. He looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to remember whether she was part of the dream. His voice came out rough, sandpaper and smoke. You're still here. Her throat tightened. You always did have bad timing. He smiled weakly. I told you. I don't die easily. She laughed, then immediately cried. Don't ever do that again. He tried to sit up, wincing. Where are we? Phoenix, she said. Federal Hospital. You've been out for 10 days. He exhaled slowly, his gaze finding hers. And you? I'm the reason they didn't let you die, she said. And the reason they might not let you leave. He frowned. They're using me. They're offering you a deal, she corrected. Names for immunity. You testify, you walk. His jaw tightened. I've spent half my life putting men in graves. The other half trying not to join them. What makes you think I want to walk free? She leaned forward, her voice steady but soft. Because freedom isn't for you anymore. It's for what comes after you. He looked away, eyes heavy with something she couldn't name. And what's after me, Lucia? You are. Days passed. Matthias recovered slowly, the strength returning to his voice, his hands. He spoke with the federal agents, but only under one condition. Lucia had to be in the room. They didn't like it. He didn't care. When they asked for the names of his brother's lieutenants, he gave them. When they asked about the routes, the shell companies, the corrupt officers, he gave those too. But when they asked about her, how she'd survived, what she meant to him, he said nothing. After the last interrogation, she waited outside the room. When he finally emerged, pale and exhausted, she asked, "Why protect me?" He looked at her with that same slow-burning calm that had always terrified and comforted her in equal measure. "Because if they know what you mean to me, they'll use you. And I've done enough using for one lifetime." She stared at him. "You're giving them everything." He nodded. "That's the price. For redemption? For peace." 3 weeks later, the day came. The FBI escorted him to a black SUV outside the hospital. Chains on his wrists, the desert wind carrying the smell of dust and distance. Lucia stood by the curb, her hair whipping around her face. "Where are they taking you?" "Somewhere quiet," he said. "For how long?" "As long as it takes." She swallowed hard. "You'll disappear, won't you?" He smiled faintly. "You're learning." She stepped closer. "So that's it? After everything?" He looked down at her, at the woman who had turned his violence into silence, his vengeance into something close to grace. "No," he said. "Not everything." He lifted his chained hands, brushing his fingers against hers. "You kept me alive. That's a debt I'll never repay." She shook her head, tears glinting in her eyes. "Just promise me you won't die somewhere I can't find you." He met her gaze, steady and quiet. "Lucia, if I die, I'll make sure you feel it." The agents opened the car door. She whispered, "And if you live?" He hesitated, then smiled, the smallest, softest smile she'd ever seen on him. "Then maybe one day you'll see a man buying coffee on some forgotten street, and you'll wonder if it's me." And then he was gone. Months passed. Lucia left Los Angeles for good. She moved north, traded chaos for quiet, a teaching job in Santa Fe, a small house with a view of the hills. She grew plants. She learned the names of the constellations again. But sometimes, when the rain came hard, she'd wake to the sound of tires on wet pavement. Footsteps outside her door. A voice whispering her name in the dark. She'd smile into the quiet and whisper back, "You kept me alive. I'm keeping us both." And somewhere far away, in a place without names, where the desert meets the sky, Macias Ortega would feel it. The ache of a promise that refused to die, though the echo of a life reborn not through mercy, but through survival. The peace of a man who'd finally stopped running because someone had learned to run for him.